Trade rumors are starting to escalate once again for the Toronto Raptors and another NBA star, as, of course, everyone's been following the debacle out there with the Dallas Mavericks, who just fired Nico Harrison, and all eyes, all insiders are pointing to a fire sale coming for that group. And the Toronto Raptors are very well positioned to execute a blockbuster trade with the Dallas Mavericks, and multiple NBA outlets have linked the Toronto Raptors to this fire sale, putting together different trade proposals and things like that. And we'll break all of that down in this video, including all the recent reports regarding this Anthony Davis situation, and most importantly, whether or not it makes sense for the Toronto Raptors to pursue this trade. Because this, again, like a lot of these blockbuster trades we're seeing with the Toronto Raptors, would be another serious risk for the organization. So lots of stuff to dive into in this video. But folks, I appreciate every single one. You guys have been absolutely amazing over the course of this season. The Raptors are back. The team is really interesting once again. So if you are a part of the 53% of our viewers that are not hit the subscribe button just yet, we are oh so close to building this community up to 40,000 people. It's free. You hit that button below and you join the Raptors Digest community. So I appreciate every single one of you, but let's dive into the news because this one is pretty crazy. Of course, Anthony Davis is a piece out there in the Dallas Mavericks the entire NBA has their eyes on. Why? Well, yesterday, Shams revealed that the Dallas Mavericks ended up firing Nico Harrison months after the Luka Doncic trade, which, of course, the centerpiece in that package was acquiring Anthony Davis. And why did they do that? Well, the Dallas Mavericks have been bad to start off the season. They're in the basement of the Western Conference, and Anthony Davis has been in and out of the lineup, and they traded away Luka Doncic due to injury risks and health concerns and stuff. And essentially, things have not been great out there in Dallas. Now, they fired Nico Harrison, and all eyes are pointing to their next moves because guys like Zach Lowe have come out and said that there's going to be Anthony Davis trade talks with some seriousness. Whether they result in a deal or not is impossible to say, but I would bet on yes. So that is what Zach Lowe has come out and said. And then ESPN has dropped that people around the league expect the Mavericks to test the trade market for Anthony Davis. So we are seeing a bunch of different reports, a bunch of different stuff. Basketball Forever showing that rival teams are now monitoring to see if the Mavericks make Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving available ahead of the February's trade deadline. So, of course, they may pivot and try to build around Cooper Flagg, of course, the number one pick in this year's NBA draft. So there is a lot of eyeballs on the Dallas Mavericks trading Anthony Davis with this new regime, this new contingent of folks that they have out there in the mix. Is this trade imminent? No, they have to lock in their GM. They have to lock in who's going to be, executing, making the decisions out there in the front office. But the Toronto Raptors are a team that's already getting linked to an Anthony Davis trade, as the Ringer proposed this deal for the Toronto Raptors to get involved with. Essentially, the Raptors receive Anthony Davis, and the Dallas Mavericks receive R.J. Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, and 2 future first-round picks. Now, this deal triggers a little emotion to me as someone that has been pushing this narrative to keep RJ Barrett, start the movement to keep him. I think I've been fairly validated in the idea of not trading away RJ Barrett, just given how good and how strong he has been for the Toronto Raptors this season. I am standing on business here, but when you look at a guy like Anthony Davis, who has some serious concerns about his game right now, his injury situation, his body, all of that stuff, you do have to take these things serious. So let's take a look at Anthony Davis this season, because the first thing that everyone's been bringing up regarding Anthony Davis is his current weight, because apparently, and you look at some pictures, and of course these guys are NBA athletes, they're in better shape than I'll ever be in, athletically and stuff, but relative to Anthony Davis's prime form, like he's been with the LA Lakers, he has certainly looked a little bit out of shape relative to his usual standards. And for a guy that has a significant injury history, this is concerning. People were also zooming in on his waist out here on this picture, saying he has love handles and stuff. I'm not too worried about the Anthony Davis weight game. He's out there in Dallas. Players out there in Texas can sometimes gain weight, especially when dealing with injuries at that situation. I don't have any long-term concerns about Anthony Davis's health because he'll easily get back in shape, even though the injuries are the actual concern regarding this situation, especially just given this man's age, as he's currently 32. Since he's been traded to Dallas, he hasn't played in a ton of games, to be realistic, and he's still putting up phenomenal stats when he's out there playing. He's one of the best defensive players in the entire NBA this season, in terms of his total stats, right? Anthony Davis is a guy that's averaging 21, 10, 2 assists, 1.2 blocks, and 1.6 steals per game. He's not a three-point shooter per se. He doesn't take a high volume, shoot 27%, but can knock it down if you leave him completely open. Still 32 years old. The guy is still an all-star caliber player. So you cannot deny that. You cannot say that. But the concerns are certainly, hey, is he going to be healthy? And if you are going to be giving up such a package, such a price, then these things have to be taken very, very seriously. Because, at a package regarding Jakob Poeltl this season has been not up to his usual standards, averaging 8 and 7 at 1.7 assists, but he's been dealing back spasms. Last season was averaging close to 15 and 10, one of the top upper echelon centers out there in the NBA. And then you have your different guys out there in the lineup, because I'm biased. I like my guys. I'm an RJ Barrett guy. He's my dude. I would probably lead towards a package like this, where you throw Immanuel Quickley in that deal, your 2 future firsts, and then you also acquire Dwight Powell to get some insurance out there on your team. That's another direction where the money will work out. Of course, you have to wait till Jakob Poeltl becomes trade eligible, around January. So again, this deal isn't imminent by any stretch of the imagination. They have to see how things are going to play out there in Dallas right now, but this is the framework of a package, whether it be this RJ Barrett deal or this Immanuel Quickley deal, that really sets things up for the Toronto Raptors. Now, this adds some serious questions in terms of how you'd want to structure this deal, structure this package, because you take a look at the contract situation for the Toronto Raptors moving forward, and Immanuel Quickley is regarded by a lot of people as a contract that could become a negative asset, a liability out there on your books, going forward in the future, just given how long it is and how Immanuel Quickley this season, again, he's been playing a lot better in his last couple of games, but 15 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and defensively, there has been some concerns about him with his on-ball pressure. So there's 2 avenues. You go the route, because you're going to have to give up some serious assets no matter how far below what you'd expect Anthony Davis's trade value falls. You're going to have to give up some serious assets in order to make one of these deals happen. And there's a couple of routes, because if you have this RJ Barrett deal, it makes more sense for the roster balance. You have such a glut out there at the shooting guard position. You make this trade, you do the one that the Ringer suggested, then you insert Gradey Dick out there into the starting lineup. You have an upgrade there at center, and then you can run the lineup of Immanuel Quickley, Gradey Dick, Scottie Barnes, Brandon Ingram, and Anthony Davis. And then that opens up more minutes for Jakob Walter, an AJ Lawson, an Ochai Agbaji, a Javis Battle out there on your wings with, RJ Barrett's 35 minutes a night being out of the way, and you see what happens. You're still very thin out there in the front court, and then you have the point guard tandem of Immanuel Quickley and Jamal Shead. But one of the lineups that honestly, I'm very, very intrigued by, which some people might hate, might disagree with me on, is if you do that Immanuel Quickley trade package and you throw in Dwight Powell out there for the Mavericks. Yes, you're starting Jamal Shead, who is an unproven talent just there in the NBA. But you have Shead, you have RJ Barrett, you have Scottie Barnes, you have Brandon Ingram, you have Anthony Davis. And that starting lineup with Jamal Shead, with Scottie Barnes, and with AD, that is going to be one of the most ferocious defensive lineups out there in the NBA. And BI, as well as RJ Barrett being a bit more locked in out there on that end, you could flip it out. Like, that is going to be a menacing defensive starting unit for any team to actually try to face up against, to try to handle, to try to score against. Now, it leads to you have to be trusting Chucky Hepburn to be your backup point guard, who, from his G League performances, man, the intensity that guy plays with, I would be comfortable at least giving Chucky Hepburn a shot out there at that backup point guard position. You have to trust Jamal Shead to be a starter. You have to trust the jump shooting to remain level, because Immanuel Quickley has struggled with his jump shot to start off the season, has been better the last couple of games, but would overall be a much better touted shooter than a Jamal Shead. You have to trust that would stay right and the offense would look good. It's this is the more risky route, but I think it's the higher upside kind of lineup, the higher upside team that you have. You still have the glut at the shooting guard position, so I get why logically, this lineup that this type of trade package that Bobby Webster could put together would make more sense, but I don't know. There's just something about this team, man, that would get me very, very excited. Of course, it would be a massive risk to acquire Anthony Davis for all the weight things that are, concerned regarding that whole situation, the injury risks and stuff. We've already seen how the Raptors frontcourt can get depleted with Jakob Poeltl, who is a less injury-prone player than Anthony Davis, being in the mix, but the talent upgrade would be undeniable. The age is a little bit of concern, a little bit of a factor, but if the Raptors are going all in on this team, I mean, it's hard to argue the talent that would be on one of these rosters. It's impossible to really argue how the talent upgrade wouldn't make sense. Again, you're risking your future a little bit with the first-round picks, but we have a lot of young guys out there in the system. it's a very intriguing proposition for the Raptors. I'm really interested to see what you guys think about one of these deals actually going down. So let me know what you guys think. Would you want to see the Toronto Raptors trade for Anthony Davis? Let me know in the comment section. Anyways, you guys are the best. I'm signing now. Cheers.